Coming to you from UBN Studios in Burbank, California, you are listening to the Unsugarcoated podcast with your host, Aalia.
Hello, everybody. This is your favorite social good host and your favorite award-nominated social good podcast coming at you today. Thank you so much for returning. Once again, we have an incredible guest and some information and conversation that will hopefully provide to you, value. And I'm going to kind of start it off by just talking a little bit on personal transformation, which is the task of changing who you are and becoming the person you want to be. Sometimes those are things we get to choose, and sometimes those are things that life forces us to have to do. And I remember one time, not long ago, somebody told me never be afraid to reinvent myself every so often. It's actually healthy. But some of the questions that go along with it are how and why, because there are so many things that people want to do in their lives, right? You may want to lose weight, break free from an addiction, learn a skill or trade, or how to make more money. You may have goals that become very frustrating to you because you're not seeing the scale move, or you're not seeing, you're back to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, or you're feeling like you're going nowhere in your career. How do you stay motivated? Because obviously you've come to a point where you're motivated enough that you want to make these changes in your life, but something is holding you back. How do we move that needle forward? And, when there's just something not working for you, it is definitely within your interest to find out what, how, and really what can help you make that big change. I do want to share a personal story, and it's helped me. It's one of the suggestions I give when it comes to goal setting. And for me, I would love for you in the audience to just pick, through the conversation today, I do want you to think in your mind a big goal, a goal that you have, the greatest goal that you can think of, perhaps. For me, at times, those things are things that are tangible, like losing weight or making more money. But at other times, it's been living. For those of you who know, I'm a 3-time cancer survivor. There was a time in my life where I had to sit down and I took a Post-it note. And I simply wrote, I want to live. Started with that. And then on the rest of that note, I said, I want to hug my kids. I want to watch them grow up. And I kept this sticky on my mirror, on my fridge. I'd even put it in my purse every so often, and I'd keep it with me, and I just rotated. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when it comes to goal setting, one of the things that's very critical is that your brain develops a relation to this goal. The more you touch something, the more your brain reminds you of it. Writing causes thinking. And when you write down on a card or note, the image is impregnated into the brain cells that we have. And just in case you are not aware, your brain is capable of incredible things. So for me, every time I touched that Post-it note, it activated those cells. And that image came up of hugging my children when they're grown, watching them walk down the aisle, watching them graduate from high school. And and I'm thankful to say that it's happening. I've got to see my grandson born and things like that I look back and I say, I know it's because I set those goals to live, and that was part of my journey. So I say that to say that sometimes the goals can be really, really big, But in the thread of transformations, I have someone here who's really going to help me dive into this subject today. And like most of my guests, he has an incredible story that will not only surprise you, but it will inspire you. I mean, literally, he got in a fight with a train, and just so you know, the train lost. So I can only preface it with that, all right? So without further ado, let's definitely get him introduced. Cancer survivor, train accident survivor, best-selling author, and host of the podcast Release the GENIE, Paul Rogers has lived many lives thus far. Starting off as a successful commercial lawyer in the UK, transitioning to a kite surf instructor, working as a teacher on a native Cree reserve, he is now on a mission to help others experience the power and journey of transformation to find their inner passion and true purpose. The director at Core Mentors Association, Paul speaks on topics such as trauma, TBI, or traumatic brain injury, and PTSD. Internationally, he vulnerably shares his story of 2 personal, devastating, life-changing tragedies. Paul is a highly sought-after keynote speaker and the founder of the public speaking course find your voice. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking to us today from Canada, please welcome Mr. Paul Rogers. Hello, 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 Mr. Rogers. You know, the visual audience has to get on. You are just a sight for sore eyes. I love your jacket. You know.
I borrowed it from Joseph. He kind of said he wants it back afterwards, but I figured I'd borrow it for just a little while.
You know, it's so funny that you say that because there is a picture somewhere. I mean, you could have stolen it from Joseph, my husband, audience, because I have this picture of him one Christmas. He did dare to wear the total. He gets into that whole suit that's like Santa Claus or something. I mean, he loves to be different, and I love that about him, definitely. So I love that about you, Mr. Rogers. I mean, it's kind of hard to know where a little bit to start with you, but I want to start first on your personal background. You know, I mentioned it. You'd had two personal life-changing and devastating tragedies. Let's start with the first one, shall we?
Yeah, let's take these in chronological order.
Right.
So the first one was in 2014. So not that long ago. I got the phone call no one ever wants to get, which was it's skin cancer. And as Aalia will know, your whole world just disappears from underneath your feet. And of course, it was not just a regular one. It decided it was going to be very aggressive. So I got shipped back to the UK, and it's like with cancer. You get in a timetable which is not your control. You do this, you do that, and the medical profession take over. And because it was skin cancer, it was I had operations rather than any sort of chemotherapy or radiotherapy. It decided to take a stroll up into my lymph nodes, which was kind of convenient. And so they had to do an ancillary clearance, which is very similar to the operation which ladies have for breast cancer. It's gone. We're now 5 and hopefully this year 6 years counting. So yeah, that was kind of the one where you think most people have said, you know, that is my life trauma. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Right. But no, there was more. And we talk about this, so we're both cancer survivors. And audience, listen, if you don't have a sense of humor, you're not going to do well with this stuff. You have to. And I love your energy. And we both joke about stuff in ways that people are like, that's kind of, you know. But no, I mean, you got in a fight with the train, and the train lost. I mean, tell us about that day. And we do have a picture. We showed one picture to the audience of just some of the scars. You know, you shared that with us. We have a picture of the car in a bank of snow. Tell us about that day.
What I did is we picked up my 2-year-old son. I was in the car with my wife in northern Quebec, so lots and lots of snow still, minus 30 outside, so pretty chilly. And we're driving back from picking him up. We had my beautiful white husky Malamute in the back, and over an unmanned crossing when a train hit the car. It T-boned the car. It took us about 100 yards down the track, apparently. Destroyed us, destroyed the car. Yeah, I have been in a fight with a train, and I'm pretty much in the select group of 3 who say that they have actually walked away from that. Now, medical doctors, even last week, have said, look, there is no way you should be here. The catalogue of injuries you've sustained, life-changing. I never really understood what the word life-changing meant. And now I know. I also had no clue what TBI meant. I had to go and look that up because I have no idea what that was. And so that's traumatic brain injury, and I have one of those. And I have the dessert is chronic PTSD. It's the gift that just keeps on giving. So that was 10 days later, we were to wake up in hospital. My wife, she had emergency brain surgery. Mine couldn't have because it nicked the carotid artery. But I had a smashed skull, broken neck, and broken back, and couldn't walk or talk, which some people may say the talk part is, but I've got that voice back. Ha. So yes, that's just to set the scene.
How long was your recovery from that?
I haven't stopped recovering. I'm still in recovery.
Mm.
And it was 3 years ago on Friday, the 19th of March. That doesn't get any easier. And I have pain virtually every single day. I get scared is not the right word. PTSD, it can happen anytime. The triggers aren't certain, but it makes you feel like your world is ending all over again. And what that does is just keeps reinforcing the pain, reinforcing. So we've spoken before about trauma, and I really don't believe that you ever get over it, but I think you make it part of you. You absorb it into you, and then it's up to you what you then can do with it. I think you get more comfortable, as much as uncomfortable or comfortable could be, but I wouldn't change it. I would change the accident. I change it for the pain. I change it for the pain I've caused my network and family. But for who it's made me now, I wouldn't change it.
When we talk about transformation, I feel like transformation, it connotates a word of evolution, of course, change, of course, but also like there's a state of being who you are every day, and understanding that that journey, it's like being who you are and then learning how to be who you want to be, right? Is that the best way to describe it, or one of them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I sort of break that down as into two separate words. Form, which is how we are, our physical form, our mental form, our beliefs, everything which we are. And then trans, which is to go above, to soar above your form. So the word has movement. It goes beyond what your form is. So that's where you should land. It's the takeoff point. It's not the landing point. And that's the beauty of that journey.
I love that. Exactly. See, this is why, I love having these conversations with you. You now are helping people, you're helping those who are facing or have faced trauma, financial, by the way, physical, emotional, and mental. You teach people that we're not defined by our stories, but the lessons learned. How is it for you when you say, you're not defined by your story, but the lessons learned? What are the lessons that you have learned?
The lessons I've learned have been all painful, but I think any substantial change is always made through adversity. So adversity is the great necessity for change. And on a very basic level, when I woke up, I didn't know if I had a family still. And so when you think you've lost something, it takes on a whole different level of importance. And also, you just appreciate what is actually important in life, not the sort of the playing bits, but what actually matters, what actually is something you're striving for. And so it gives you a different perspective. And I think anyone who's faced their mortality down, you come back with a different message. And I feel that then is my duty in a nice way to pass that on without them having to headbutt a train on the way.
And it's powerful. I have to, going to goals like right now, well, I'm going to save it for the end. I am going to come back and ask you what some of your goals are. But in the meantime, actually, I kind of want to pick your brain, because I know you speak on things in such a way, and you've had this incredible background. Most people operate with a mindset that assumes success comes one step at a time, right? Which to some degree it can, but the the unspoken but popular notion is that we must move systematically from our present level of achievement to the next. But how do you find that, like, when people start off with a goal, how are you, there's the incremental, but and actually, just to be clear, I'm speaking quantumly. There's the moving forward and incremental, and then there's the leaping forward. That's what I want to help with our guests. So when you take the approach of helping people who are setting goals and they want to make major transformation happen, how do they start?
Well, the quantum leap for thinking of goals and getting to where you are is you just need to forget all the advice, all the conventional advice you actually have been taught and know. It's not incremental. It's missing out levels and still arriving where you need to be. It's a bit, in a way, like my kite surfing. Jumping is easy. It's the coming down you have to worry about. And there we are. Look at that. Great stuff, protection. And so it's the easy part is taking off. You cannot look at the middle bit. That bit is the messy stuff. That's the bit where you're going to doubt yourself. Use that doubt, because let me tell you, fear and excitement are very thinly divided. So turn that fear into excitement and use that as jet propulsion, and then spot your landing. Look entirely at where you want to be and land. There's a great story, if I may, from Price Pritchett, U Squared, and he tells the story of there's a fly bashing against the window trying to get out, and it's buzzing really, really hard, and the fly thinks that the way through the window is just flying harder and harder. The fly will not make it. The fly will die. If you were to look 180 degrees, the door is open and you can just fly away. And that is where a lot of people get caught up with. It's that I just need to fly, I just need to work harder. You just need to be able to spot that there may be another way.
That's so true. We grew up with that saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And so when people sit down, I mean, it's very interesting when you talk about, because even with business, I talk a lot about, you can have two people and they're working the same amount of hours in a day, but one is doing massively better, massively more productive than the other one. And I'm, saying these things to give you opportunity, like, why does that happen? Why is that one person, not getting, because I mean, to me, they work hard, but not necessarily smarter, right?
It really comes down to mindset. And I know that's a word thrown around at the moment, and it's very easy, it's mindset, but no, it's more than that. It's actually method. Because mindset is fine, that will get you through the door, but method will actually take you everywhere else. And that's sort of hijacking one of Einstein's quotes, but I'm going to run with that. And it's a question of, don't try and multitask. Do one thing at a time. If you look at an hourglass, one grain of sand can go through the present. They don't all pile through. That is where you need to take one thing and do it well. You need to plan, work with what you are going to do, and then just keep to it. You've just got to keep to it and make that extra call. Go that extra yard, over deliver that extra bit, because it will always come back to you in ways which you don't know. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, it's all about that. There's so many other books that back that up. And I think you just need to do the simple things really, really well.
Okay, so backing up a little bit to what you said, I totally agree, by the way. Mindset. I love to pretend that perhaps someone in the audience has no real true understanding of what that word means, because you're right, it is thrown around so much. But what is truly mindset, Paul?
Mindset is a collection of thoughts at the end of the day. It's and those thoughts you can shape. And you are mainly we're on a program stuff from right when we were small, and they are beliefs. They are handed to you as a script, beliefs is very different from knowings. Knowing is stuff you have inside you. And we hear people, it's a fixed mindset. It's just because they have become static because of what they have experienced, what their lessons they have done, and they do things in a set way. The worst thing you could ever hear in business, oh, it's always been done like that. That's just a killer mindset thinking. Instead, a moving mindset goes from competition to creation, to collaboration, to being open. You'll get more work done by collaborating, bringing in people's skills, and it's a lot more fun. You go home feeling good. Everyone else feels like they've done something. For me, that's the attitude. It's actually not being competition, but moving from a competition to a creation and collaboration mindset. It's a shift of ideas and thinking.
Oh, yes. Thank you for saying that. Because, and people have their ceilings. There's that fixed, and then there's the growth. I always like to tell people fixed is exactly like you said. Well, it's just the way we do things. Or I can't do that because, right? I can't do that because I'm a female. I can't do that because I'm a minority. I can't do that because I didn't grow up on the right side of the tracks. I can't do it because, and how important it is to freaking throw the ceiling off and be like, I can do that because I'm passionate. I'm determined, right? So talk to us about in that thread, how important is passion as part of the process when you really start to think about what you're capable of and setting goals and creating transformation for yourself?
Absolutely. And I can use my my own example. I mean, I was a commercial lawyer, pretty successful, and I did that for 11 years. And I got to the point where I was good at it, but I just felt empty and stuck inside. It was just going through the motions. And my passion was kite surfing. I wasn't even particularly good at it, but it was something where I just got this huge release of just natural joy. And I decided to move from being a lawyer, so stuck, to following entirely my passion. And it's okay, I'm still here. It had a wonderful, wonderful ride following my passion. And the real takeaway moment is stop listening to the head. It's not always telling you the truth. Listen to your heart, and it sounds desperately cheesy, but it's not. If you listen to the heart or the gut, it will never ever let you down. And you just need to embrace that voice. And once you make that shift, you will never go back.
When you say that, it makes me think of part of having that passion is giving yourself permission. So you gave yourself permission, right? I mean, look, we're talking about quantum leaps here, guys. Like you can definitely get to things differently, but I tend to be a person who wants to get there faster so that I can do more things. Although there's some things that just have to take their time. I'm not speaking to everything, but you've got to give yourself permission to pursue what you want most, right? How has that? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. And that's coming back to where we were about the I can't. Well, why not? Who told you can't? Did you tell yourself that? What basis? This is the rigid parts. And I had this wonderful story of there's people who they're trapped in a cage and they spend their whole life turning the bars to silver by collecting things, gold, platinum, jeweled. They've got the best set of bars, but the kicker is they're still in a cage. And the whole idea of embracing your passion is to follow what makes you happy and feel alive. There is no other question you need to answer. The money will take care of itself. It always does. That's a convenience because, I can't do that because all my mates are stuck as lawyers. They're a little bit fatter, a little bit grayer. Look at me. I don't look like a lawyer anymore.
Which, by the way, see, okay, so just so you know, we're doing like this is a talk show moment. We do have a photo of you without dreads. It does exist. We have a picture of you. Look at you, short and sweet, long time ago. About what time was this picture taken?
This was when I was a lawyer. That's my corporate haircut.
That's your corporate haircut. I love it. Okay, so when you say that, I love it because when you say that, oh gosh, immediately my head went to I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And when we talk about trauma, Paul, there's not just transformations that take place for people career-wise and family-wise, trauma-wise, right? How do you, when you go through helping people and you know, as you do with your podcast, and I am going to have you speak to that, releasing the genie. And, you know, I know you're always talking to people, what is your superpower, what's your hero, that inner hero? How do you help people deal with transformation when it comes to trauma?
Trauma is, what's one trauma to one is not a trauma to another. But the important thing is to remember trauma is trauma. There's not one bigger, there's not one smaller. It will feel as real to you as it does to anyone else. You don't always have to headbutt a train. There are other things, which losing your job or spiritual, emotional. You need to get to the point where you make a decision. I call them mirror moments, where you get to the point where you're like, that's it. I'm not taking anything more. You look at yourself in the eye, which you don't do very often, and you say, that's it. That's enough. At that point on, everything is part of the recovery. You will not be or may not be responsible for the trauma happening. But when you start to become responsible for your growth and your steps out of that trauma, that's when you start getting the power back. That's when you start making amends. I'm not saying forgive or anything else. The more you throw blame around, the more you depower yourself. My wife, on my accident, the train driver apparently turned up at the intensive care. Now, my wife only had one small part of memory, and he came in and the guy was just doing a job. I mean, you know, and she said to him, "It's not your fault." Now that 3 or 4 words has mostly changed his entire life. That's mostly stopped or helped him with whatever trauma he's dealing with. It's that type of thing where you can really help people, just a few words.
What do you feel is, you know, I'm diving into your personal experiences outside of your own transformation that you've journeyed through. What's been a significant moment where you saw somebody really experience true transformation as a result? You know, I know you work in a lot of mentorship and recovery and helping people, supporting people. Is there a moment or an experience that you can share that really stands out to you?
Absolutely. And it was actually on my speaking course, and it's called Find Your Voice, simply because I believe the power of story is the most powerful gift you can give to someone. And there was a client who, her son, when he was 2, was diagnosed with cancer. So she was a parent with a 2-year-old who had cancer. And we were talking through, and it would come obvious to me that she was stuck in that story. She got to that point, and the 2-year-old is now the 13-year-old, but she was going around and around. And I stopped her and said, "Look, you're not there anymore. You got lost in the chapter in the nicest way. You are the lessons which you learned from that. That story is just an illustration of that. But what you've got now, that gift, what that's given you, is given you a gift which then you can share on to us." So seeing that, suddenly that light bulb go on, and she's like, and she realized that she had got herself stuck, but she now, and after that, I mean, everything was just different. And to me, that's worth all there is no money you can place for that.
For you, how does it feel to be standing and you know, as an example that you can overcome the traumas? It's not always like you said, you're still in recovery. I talk about that. It's so interesting that you said that, because I say to myself and to others, anything I've recovered from, it's a lifelong journey. I work at it every day because otherwise we can slip back into old habits. We can slip back into old damaging mindsets, limiting mindsets. It's, like you said, it's that we're not static people, we're dynamic, and so we're constantly changing based on our experiences, our levels. Like I had a conversation with someone, a young woman last night, really sweet, really lovely, but her perception or her thought was that bad things happen to people because based on the law of attraction, you're attracting it. You must have done, if something's happened to you, it's likely that you've attracted this to you. I have problems with that, especially where it speaks to survivors of sexual assault or molestations or things. It's a harder comment to take, and that's just being honest and vulnerable from a perspective of my own, right? Like I talked about that. I'm just very candidly, hopefully nobody's triggered. I was molested by 5 different men between 4 and 7 years old. How could I have attracted that, right? So when we talk about the law of attraction and how people, what are your thoughts on that? Because, you had cancer, you had the fight with the train, and we jokingly talk about, no cats are coming around you because they think you're stealing their lives. But, look, let's talk about that. What are your thoughts when you hear somebody with that thought process?
I agree that law of attraction does play a very important role. But you've got to remember that you're the creator. And I've talked about the blame and everything else. And I think when you start to look outside yourself and you start pointing fingers, you disempower yourself. And then you get into that mindset, oh, well, it's me, it's me, it's me. You won't see the opportunity. You'll just see painful endings. You won't see the opportunity that painful ending brings. It's very rare that opportunity comes with a big sign or neon sign saying, hey, I'm an opportunity. But there are that, but you just need to be willing to dig. Now, I'm going to very quickly tell you, in the accident, the firefighters told us that my great white husky, Malamute, jumped over the back seat to land on top of my 2-year-old and my wife. And he saved our lives. They were certainly being killed. But he gave his life in the process. Now, why do I tell that story? In the depths of the darkest, most horrible things, the destructive moment, there is a story of love, beauty, and compassion. It's not obvious, but it's there. And sometimes just being able to take yourself, if you think I've got no money, well, you're going to get more of what you think. But if you take responsibility and you can change your thought, that's your job. You can do that. You start yourself on a road where actually you start seeing opportunities and they start turning up.
And it is our job, Yes, you're so right. And 2 things. One, thank you for saying that, because for any of the audience, you've been listening. The theme of this season is silver linings, and it is so true. The good with the bad. And so for someone with that mindset, the reason why I asked you is because exactly, it's not about the things. Really, truly, the law of attraction boils down to your thoughts about it. If when they happen, how did you handle it? How did you move through it? There have been horrible things that we go through, but yet we look back, and hindsight's always 20/20, and sometimes it's just so hard to see the blessing or the lesson while you're in it. You're too close. Sometimes it takes those things down the road. I also talk about that when it comes to like people who want to monetize, or people are looking, especially on certain apps right now. I'm not going to say it one more time, the one that a lot of us have been spending time on, but people go in there like, how can I monetize this? And I don't know. I think that for me, I just love the way that I do business and the way that I network. It's like I'm planting seeds into things, and later on the rewards that come, and it might not be this tangible money. Maybe it's just the friendship, the relationship. Maybe they show up at your next baby shower. Maybe they're the ones to be there when you sell your next book, or just have a barbecue. It is a blessing to be connected to other people and to share these experiences so we can help and learn. And I think that's ultimately another part of transformation. People try to do things alone, right? How important is accountability in finding someone? And I'm going to be quite honest, like I've never had a coach myself, or, you see a lot of lifestyle coaches, but if I wanted to lose 20 pounds, I would hire a personal trainer, right? And if I want to get into that transformational space, if I want to really, how does that play into the accountability that really helps somebody transform themselves?
I think you don't know what you don't know, and you won't lead where you haven't gone. So I don't think there's any substitute for personal experience, and that happened, in my view, that happened because there was a greater picture. And agreed, you don't see it at the time. And I think it was Steve Jobs that life has to be lived forward, but can only have understood looking backwards. And I think that's right. But you just have to trust yourself that actually that the next step is the one which will look logical. It certainly don't feel logical at the time. You're like, oh, when you look back, that was genius. That was just sheer guts, determination. And that's where your passion comes in. That's where your mindset comes in. That's where the seeing the opportunities comes in. It's all of that together. And to allow and to show a transformation, I really believe that you need to have that overview, which only comes from walking through the ring of fire yourself.
Yeah. And then sometimes, well, and I'm not, by no means, if anyone's listening, I'm not a coach, but I think that sometimes there's this negative association. And I think that you should do your due diligence if you're looking for help and support. But also to that, sometimes for individuals, the external view, you have more clarity. Sometimes we're just too close to our situations and we can't. So I can see the value of that. And one of the ways that I love you kind of give your coaching and your mentorship and the knowledge that you have to everyone is through your Release the Genie podcast. So let's talk about what started you on that journey. I mean, I know firsthand it's not easy. It's a real thing. And you do so wonderful. Tell me about that journey. How did that start? What prompted you? And how has the journey been thus far?
I've been looking for platforms to reach more and more people to try and spread inspiration, hope, awareness. And I'll tell you the truth. I've got a 5-year-old and he watches Aladdin on and on again. Disney Plus has been our favorite channel. And after about the 10th time through, I was like, oh, and I came up with what all that energy comes when they come out of the lamp. They're like, bah. And first of all, it was Robin Williams. Now it's Will Smith. Does a good job, just in case you're listening. Okay. And and it's that energy. And people say, what's your target audience? My target audience is anyone who needs to hear what is being said on that day and being inspired. I had a guy the other week, didn't know him, came into my on LinkedIn, came into my direct message saying, I just heard your podcast. It was exactly what I needed to hear today. Thank you so much. That made everything for me, because it's not the people you know, it's not your family and friends you're talking to, it's the people behind that, the people you never see. They're the ones who actually are the ones who need inspiration, the people who are not confident enough to come forward, but just hear what they need on that day. So my journey has been to bring guests, and actually, to be honest, they're kind of thumbing through connections, and they all have one thing in common. They are really inspiring. They've all reached that by a different thing, which is really exciting. And personally, for me, it's been a great healing experience, because if you hang around with people like that and you talk to people like that all the time, you can't help, excuse the pun, some of it to rub off. So I have a huge amount of happiness doing it. And that, as you said, it's not straight line. there's going to be X, but there could be connections. There can be people who are watching it thinking, I just needed that. So talk to the person you can't see, and that's where actually the real cheese is.
Agreed, and I love it. In fact, I'll have to admit, somebody messaged me saying that they saw my interview on your show and that they watched it twice, and I was like, oh, thank you. He's like, I had to go back and watch it twice. It was so good. You know, I love when you brought up the brain and or just your concept within. The release the genie and what we're capable. Going back to that concept of what we're capable of. There's one. I happen to have a familiarity with TBI, traumatic brain injury, because my sister went through one. She had an AVM. She literally just ruptured out of the middle of in the morning, shook her husband, said, call the doctor, something's wrong. 2 minutes later, changed, or 2 seconds later, her entire world changed for a year. At least she went from the ICU. She nearly died. She had to go through rehab. I remember when she came out of the coma, she couldn't talk. She couldn't, there were so many things that she went through. But for me, as an external person, watching the journey and understanding how powerful the brain is, it was absolutely astonishing. I remember there was a part where she was getting to the point, she'd moved past, she was able to be home, but there were still physical things that would happen because of the way that her brain was still working from the injury. And I remember that she told me, her hand would kind of curl up a little bit. And she said that part of the exercise from the doctor was to tell her hand, straighten out. And watching this was incredible. So when you talk about releasing the genie, Paul, how and having gone through your experience, how familiar are you and what was your experience with what I'm talking about? Because you obviously went through this. You didn't just wake up and it's not like the movie, right? Like I saw one movie that was like the guy woke up from an AVM totally normal. I'm like, that's not how it works.
No, it's kind of like the Hollywood drowning where they sort of go, and there's this tiny little bit of water comes out and it's like, and it's never in that person's face or anything. But, I did a podcast where actually I had a mystery guest. This was Friday, and my guest was me. And I interviewed myself from where I am now to actually what nobody sees, the battle that no one gets, the TBI things, the stuttering, the loss of balance, the permanent pain. That's something which actually everywhere people have these things, and it's not putting on a front. The reason I do what I do is because it makes me happy, and that is the person I want to be, and I know that is where I'm going to end up. So I try and spend more and more time with that person, and it comes at a cost. These things do not come. They all come at a physical, mental cost. But it's a cost I'm willing to pay because I'm determined, and my true purpose and passion is to help others. And there isn't any other reason why I survived cancer, survived a train accident. There's got to be, and if I have to do this by squaring away to say I'm here to help others and be a voice, I'm all in on that.
And what a lovely voice it is, for sure. Paul, I think when you look at the communities of people that you're working with and you know what they're capable of, where do you start? Because we have a lot of people who want to help their communities or help people within their family. Where's the number one place to start when speaking? I know that transformation is more of a personal, but I'm going to kind of take it out more to the community. How can I be active in helping facilitate, those transformations within my community based on some of these quantum, ideas and goal setting and things like that?
For me, one of my central messages is pay it forward. I have a lot to pay forward. I have a debt which for people who have looked after me, and so I pay it forward. I keep that upmost in my mind. Volunteer. I volunteer at the local animal refuge. It's something you're giving. And this is whatever you do, if you give without the expectation of receiving, that's how you've made a difference in your community. It's not all about the straight line. It's actually doing what nourishes you, because if it nourishes you, it's going to nourish the people around you. And that is how you start to create a wave of goodwill within the community. Maybe holding the door open, maybe smiling at somebody. It doesn't have to be big, but that starts to radiate out. And before you know it, there's whole waves going on. So for me, paying it forward, volunteering and giving without expectation of receiving.
I love it. Now, back to what I had said earlier. What is a goal that you have in front of you, and what are the things you're doing to get you there? Share with us one that you can.
Yes, this will be, my wife won't mind me sharing this. Part of the recovery is that my wife is writing our movie. And so far we've sort of sent the first bit out and it's been well received. As you can see, it's not a story where it wants sympathy. It's the opposite. It's same thinking, inspiration. You can go beyond what actually life and gives you, or what you think you are possible for. You can go beyond that. That's the transformation. You can transform at any age, at any time, and you can go beyond what you think are humanly possible for. Even if you have to just take me as a model, as sitting here, I am here still, pretty difficult to get rid of. But that's because I will not back down. I will carry on regardless. And I think with that determination, setting a goal which you really, really strive for, that's what makes the difference.
Well, I can't wait. When you said movie, I'm like, wait, what? Hold on, let me. No, I think that you're so right. I can tell that your spirit is full of gratitude and full of this determination. I see you share it with your podcast, and you were the first one to reach out to me and invite me, and I think it's so admirable that you're not afraid of anything other than maybe perhaps not pursuing what you really want to do, right? So,
exactly. It's the only limitation is the one you place on yourself. That's it. And if you're frightened of that, you need to actually examine it, get uncomfortable with it, reach your pain point, and then move on.
Exactly. And you said it so perfectly. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. For our audience, both watching and listening, how is the best way to support you, to get in touch with you, and to check out your podcast?
The best way is to find me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active. That's kind of like my sandbox. Paul S. Rogers, because there's loads of Paul Rogers. Who knew? And my Release the GENIE is on YouTube, so you can catch that there. And Director at Core Mentors, and my own website, which is takeactionacademy.ca, as I'm up here in Canada.
I love it. And I love all that you are doing. I am excited to continue to support you and just watch you shine and really release your own genie. It's been a blast. And we'll definitely have to have you back again once you get the movie done or before, because, there's always plenty to talk about. This is never, it's very interesting when I have these conversations because we can't fit everything. It's a course, but I want to give people the taste of possibility, right? I think that's really just ultimately what it boils down, letting people know that you are capable of this. And this can be your moment, not letting yourself be limited. If you had one call to action to society, Paul, what would it be? Well, what is it? Actually, no, let me reframe that question. Your one call to action. What is call of action to the world? What is it?
Trust and believe yourself. If you do that, everything will start to change.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks for joining us from Canada. Stay warm, of course. And we definitely look forward to seeing you again. I appreciate you. To the audience at home, I just want to say, please, 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 if you have not already, go check out Paul S. Rogers, support and subscribe to his channel. Also, don't forget to support and subscribe to ours. Also, sign up for our newsletter at www.unsugarcoatedmedia.com. We are in the process of we just got done putting out an article on the 808 farm. People should really check that out because there's some incredible things happening for social impact on Clubhouse. Definitely Unsugarcoated Media is at the forefront of that and sharing it with you. And we have some more shorts coming out focused on social good. So we're just doing lots of things. We appreciate it. Share it and stay connected. And in the meantime, thank you so much for letting us be Unsugarcoated. We will see you next time. Here. Come back next week.